Jen and Ernie, great stories. Our last team of speakers are Rex Chandler and Mark Prusynski. Both Mark and Rex have been president and vice president of our region. Now it's my turn to tell a story. I haven't been around long enough, but I have been around long enough to go to a BVB where Rex was given a safety briefing. During that safety briefing, he noted everyone's first run should be a warm-up run. I was working turn 1 that day, and I watched Rex do a perfect power slide through turn 1. I guess he was warming up his tires. Rex and Mark, please go ahead.
I learned to be president from Pentecost and English, and they would go to meetings with these notes of agendas that their wives would write out. So when I became president, Linda always wrote out my agendas, and I would just do whatever she wrote. Tonight I have some notes that she made up. This has brought back way too many memories because you talked about all of those years that now that we're into the short-term memory problem. I remember all those old times. I remember the airbag joke on that tour. I remember the "you better take that bra off" story. Doug Shanels was extremely loud, and everybody in Sun Valley could have probably heard him yelling across this parking lot. And there was this cowboy with a very interested look on his face, staring at Linda to see what she was going to do. We bought our first Porsche 79 SC that Gordon Ledbetter, some of you remember, who was a mechanic here in town, told me there was no way I should buy that, but I did it anyway because I'm really stubborn and I don't pay attention to what people say. And it was not something I should have bought, but it got me interested in other Porsches. And then when I had the good fortune of picking up one of Russ Faraday's cast-offs, an 84 911, I decided this was enough of a decent Porsche that I could join the club. And I happened to get a flyer for the Grapes on the Snake, I think we called it, wine tour that Vicky or somebody downtown had put on my car. And I thought, this is cool. So I decided to go check it out. Took Linda. Rachel was potty training at the time, and Megan was a little bigger and needed a booster seat. So I found a booster seat and had to cut the bottom around so that it would fit in the back of the 911. That's what Bob was talking about, so we could get a booster seat. And went and met the Pentecost, and they did this rally, and I said, okay, how many potty stops? Well, it's going to be like 45 minutes before we get to a bathroom. And I got a 2-year-old kid in the back who doesn't have any diapers with her, and this is like her first day of potty training. We made it, we won the rally, and that was sort of a foretelling of things to come. But those weren't the decades I was supposed to talk about. Ernie Ludwig reminded me of another. We used to go to McCall and host people up at our cabin, which you saw in some of the videos, and we had a meeting on our deck, which was kind of falling apart. And we talked about all the new people that showed up one time, and here was this older couple that sat very quietly in the back, and we were a pretty fun group, and we were all joking, kidding each other, and they just sat there. And Linda and I talked afterwards, and Englishes, I remember we're talking about these new people and who we thought would stay and who we thought would never show up. We said, oh, that old couple that sat back there, I think they were offended by us. They'll never show again. And Ludwig's came to every meeting after that. So we picked them up. But what I'd like to talk about in the 2000 era is, as you saw from earlier discussions and you see on the back of our program, Silver Sage has been nationally recognized really since the start with the Sun Valley Parade. After the Boise Parade, which everybody thought was incredible, and it was, there were two ladies that are too modest to get up here and talk, so they stuck me with the job. And that's Linda and Vicki. And they did such a good job on the Boise Parade that they kind of got volunteered or roped into. Vicki being the National Parade Chair for 4 years, and Linda being the Banquet Chair for the National Parade for 8 years. And that was just a great experience for me because I didn't really have to do anything other than carry boxes and stuff around and set up tables and do whatever Linda told me that she needed done. I didn't really have to think. But we met all these wonderful people, and from the start, we'd hear, you know, the best parade I ever went to, and it was always either the Sun Valley or the Boise Parade. The younger people would say, we've been going to parades for 25 years, and the Boise Parade was the best, because Sun Valley Parade. And then the older people, we've been going to parades for 50 years, and the Sun Valley Parade was the best. And all the time we heard this. Every parade we'd go to, we've been to only 15 or 16 or something like that, a couple less than Pentecost. But we heard that the two Idaho parades were the best parades these people from all over the country had ever been to. This is 1 year out of my decades, so I gotta tell this story. When we were traveling around with the Pentecost, we wouldn't drive all the way to the eastern parades. Drove to the one in Michigan, which is near 2,000 miles, drove to St. Charles, Fort Worth, Milwaukee. Those were all 1,700 and 1 or 2 miles. They were all like almost identical. But when we went to Hershey, we flew, and the ladies would go early because they had to start early and work on getting the parade prep. And Bob was there, and we were going to rent a van. And Bob came out and picked me up at the airport because I got there later than everybody else. And we went to rent this van, and he wanted me to sign off. Well, to cut that story short, we were then known as the domestic partners. Because the guy wouldn't let me sign, because domestic partners in Pennsylvania did not have to sign the contract. So for years, when Bob and I would wear the same Silver Sage shirt to something, I'd say, oh, yeah, we're dressed as domestic partners. In 2008, Linda and I were the only ones from Silver Sage to attend the Charlotte parade, and we were kind of surprised as they were going through the national awards. We were listening, and gee, that sounds like us. And we won the PCA Public Service Award in 2008. We weren't all that well known nationally, because I remember going up to pick up the award and coming back and hearing someone say, "Where's Silver Sage?" But I would guess that per capita, Silver Sage has probably, because we're a small region, we've probably got more awards nationally, more recognition nationally than on any other region. And that's something they should be really proud of.
Thank you, Mike. Well, after all of this, I feel like a rookie. I've only been a member for 10 years, only one parade, escape to Canada, but I do have the great fortune of being a member of, I think, just one of the greatest regions in the PCA. You know, I moved from Sun Valley about 10 years ago with my little 85 Targa, needing a little valve adjustment. Walked into Red Jones's Motorsports Northwest. And I think Mike English was there, and Ernie was there, and you know, and I was just taken in by them, and pretty soon I was part of the family. And I got to tell you, it's just been an absolutely wonderful experience. Red was very influential, and we became good friends, and he convinced me that I should be on the board, and you know, like, oh sure. And pretty soon we began to collaborate on some ideas, and there was a wonderful opportunity for some change and some advancements in our organization. One of the ones that I found to be really noteworthy was the development of our charity chair, or charity committee. And I didn't see Carol Flatter here tonight, but I'd like to thank her and all of her supporters and her staff, I wouldn't say staff, but all of her, the girls. So Molly Cutterford, Vicki Pentecost, we had Vicki Cannon, gosh, I'm sure I'm going to leave somebody out here and regret that. Cinda Beeson. I mean, it goes on and on. But the fact that the charity of which we have done so much with over the years, it was really kind of, you know, a little loose. We decided that it was important to have a committee which we could direct the charities that were worthy and have a selection process, and so that it didn't fall on one individual. A couple of years later, we happened to win at the 2012 parade. We won the prize for public service. At the, so Silver Sage won again, I think it was 2008, and then 2012 we won the Public Service Award again. And I was really proud of that, because that was, we were being recognized for our work for the previous year, the 11 was the Veterans Day. So it was November 11, 2011 that we had this fabulous charity event. And so we won the award that year in 2012. And I believe also the Pentecost won the overall rally that year. It was the first for the Silver State. So that was the big parade at Salt Lake City, and we came home as big winners of that. It was wonderful. One of the other things that I thought that really we did well was, I can remember, I think it was 2007 or something, we had a what we called the Oktoberfest. It was a car show, and it was out in Eagle, and we had 10, 12 cars. It was raining. It was right next to the Da Vinci restaurant there in Eagle, and I thought, wow, this would be really great. I think next year I'll host one downtown next to our restaurant. And we did, and I think we had like, well, the first year it was about 80, and the next year was over 100, and we outgrew the location. And now, in fact, next weekend, and thank you to Gary Cutterford and actually Sid Cannon, who ramrod this through, and we're now having the most fabulous, and I think we could call it our #1 event for Silver Sage, will be Oktoberfest next weekend. It'll be held at the Village in Eagle, or on Eagle in Meridian. And we have 114 cars registered already. And I should point out that it's not only the one-day car show, but now we have out-of-state entries. And we're going to have a coffee and cars the day before, and some welcome dinner that night. And so one little thing started with a dozen cars is now 100 cars strong, 2-day event, and I'm very proud of the job that everyone has done from that day, that rainy day in 2008. And one of the other items was our sage tick. And the sage tick, which they'd all done a wonderful job in Walkthode. When I came on board, Walkthode and Hal McMillan had done a great job with the sage tick. And but they had retired, and we were looking for a new editor. And Stu Davis stepped forward, and he actually changed the whole format for the sage tick. So now it's the full size, any color sage tick that you see today. And so I'd like to say thank you to Hal and Walt and Stu for doing a wonderful job with our sage tick. And by the way, we won first place for our sage tick in 2013 at the parade. A couple other things that came about was coffee and cars were introduced. So now, every the first Saturday of the month, we meet at our dealership, and we go for a drive that takes us through several hours throughout our wonderful. We have some of the best roads in the country, and it's absolutely fabulous. And we get to see some areas that I've never seen before. And in fact, last time we went to
Ola.
Ola. Have you ever been to Ola? Yes. Okay, what a great drive. It was a lot of fun. So, Public Service Award, Oktoberfest, our coffee and cars, charity. These are all things that I'm very proud to be a part of and make up for our last decade. But, in hindsight, after listening to all of you talk about what a great time, I feel kind of left out. And it sounded wonderful, and I'm so proud to be part of the history of Silver Sage. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about something that was an unofficial event that happened in my era. It won't take too long. But, we did a Treffen, Linda and I, in 2002. And in 2009, the Porsche Museum was supposed to open. It was actually supposed to open in 2008. But we put together, well, I didn't do anything, Linda put it together, a sort of recreation of the Treffen we did in 2002 and invited several of our Silver Sage friends. And it just goes to show how close, I've said many times that, all of my friends drive Porsches. It's kind of a takeoff on that Janis Joplin song, but it's true. Our best friends are the Porsche Club. And we went with several of us and several from other regions. And we had a great time touring southern Germany and Austria and seeing the new museum and going down to Zell am See, where the Porsche family has a castle, they call it, and we stayed there. And as the hostess was having our happy hour, which we the tour guide told us that she had never had a group that drank more alcohol on the tour bus in any other years as a tour guide than this group. They had a bathroom on the bus, so Mike was in there all the time. But we get to the Porsche family castle, and this nice lady in her German dress says, would you mind, Wolfgang Porsche is in town and he wanted to eat at the restaurant here, and so would you mind if he joined you? Of course we said, no, we want to be with ourselves. So Wolfgang came out and was talking, and Sorette was there with her mother, and I heard her talking to him all the time about his farm and these sorts of things. And she bugged him. She would start out real subtle, how would, how would we see this? How would and he wasn't getting it. It was kind of the sarcasm. He didn't get the American sarcasm. Finally, she says, "When can we come out and see your place?" And so he invited us the next morning out to the Porsche family ranch, served us espresso, and which we probably all needed, and gave us a tour. They have the family chapel up on the side of the hill. It's a ski area, runs right down through the family farm. It just is gorgeous. It was an incredible experience. We all took a picture that I saw recently. I think it's on the thumb drive of all of us standing on the Porsche family front porch, holding our espresso cups, and visiting with Wolfgang and seeing the family farm. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rex. So we're nearing the end, and I'd like to ask Walt Thode to come back up and lead us through the Irish blessing.